Hello YouTube. I wanted to do a video today about a photo I took of, well, data I captured on the Elephant Trunk Nebula earlier this summer. This target's in Cepheus. It's kind of it's a all-night target. It's somewhat close to circumpolar orbit, so it's there almost all year round. It just rises and sets on altitude a little bit, but it is a pretty beautiful target. It's a pretty large object as well. It fits really well in my frame for the 600mm astrograph and a full frame QHY 600 mono camera. You can shoot it at any focal length from 400mm all the way up to 1700, and I'll show an example of just that. I've shot this in the past with the Takahashi FSQ 106N with good results, but not as good as this. The image itself is about 21 hours of data, 7 hours HA, 7 hours oxygen, and 7 hours of S2. Now, let's go to PixInsight. Let's take a quick look at the equipment, and then let's look at some other stuff. So this is the telescope. It's the Officina Stellari RH200 F3. It's a very, very good astrograph. They are extremely expensive new, but you can find them used for quite affordable prices. Comparing this to a brand new, I don't know, I would say ASCAR or Orion telescope, they're very close. When you go to a used Officina Stellari, there's obviously risks with that, but if you know what you're doing with reflectors, this is an incredible telescope. If you know how to collimate a telescope, you understand tilt, you're going to be good. It is definitely a telescope I would recommend. I know a few people who have them. They all are pretty happy with them once they get them into good shape from a collimation point of view. I use a QHY 600 mono photographic version here. It's an excellent camera. I use the high gain read mode, and I think my offset is 40 and my gain is 56. I'll put the actual settings in the description below the video. I use a ZW174 little puck camera to guide on a William Optics 15mm guide scope. I have a couple of deuce shots, but one gave out, so I had to deal with that abomination of a setup where I took the deuce shot and I put it on both. It's on the Ioptron 120 EC2. It's a pretty stable mount. It works really well. It's not as good as the premium like the Paramounts or the Astrophysics, but it works well. It's good enough that I can almost do unguided exposures. Now, this is the setup. Again, 21 hours. This was earlier in the summer when I did this, shot this target. And I'm using Chroma 5nm filters. Now, this is another image I took of it with the Officina Stellari CRC 312-320. You've seen that telescope in my other videos. Watch the Lagoon Nebula, watch the Veil Nebula, watch the Rosette Nebula. All of them are done using that telescope. Or sorry, only the North American and Orion and the Lagoon are done using that RC. But I invite you to watch those videos. You'll see more information about telescopes, the telescope itself, and you'll see the actual telescope either next to me or on the table somewhere. This image is also pretty good. This is a much more rich field image, so much longer focal length, actually more than 3 times. So this is another one I took, and I think I imaged this about 4 times so far with different telescopes. This is my first interpretation of the data. It looks good. It looks really good. My friends at TS Optics, the ambassadors, all loved it. I think it was almost as a benchmark for one of the competitions we were doing, but I thought I could do better. And now with my workflow being much improved, and thanks to more new innovations in processing like the blur exterminator or the stutter exterminator or the noise reduction tools, I decided to take another go at this and do a video about it. So let's go on to see the raw data. So the raw data looks good. There's some issues with vignetting. I'm still struggling sometimes with vignetting, or sometimes it drifts. The HA always looks good. The only issue with this telescope is there's a lot of stars, thousands of stars, and there's no getting around that. It's a very fast telescope, even if exposed for 180 seconds. I usually do 300 seconds, just that's my minimum exposure for narrowband. the data looks good, just I have to manage the stars. Everything looks great. The detail on the HA looks really good. I can even see this kind of wispy a little piece of nebulosity that's coming off the trunk. The oxygen looks good. Again, noisy, but workable. No vignetting, pretty flat across. There's some crop issues, but I'll fix that in the stack. Sulfur, the same. Sulfur looks good. There was some misalignment and some flats issues, but the corners don't matter. We'll work our way out of that. The daylight looks clean. The stars look good. It's clean. Noise levels are manageable. So, all in all, really good data to start with. So, saying that, let's take a look at how the stack progressed. So when I first stacked it, this is what it looked like. It's a very typical SHO stack. There's some issues with one of the channels being brighter than others, but we can fix that after dynamic background extraction or automatic background extraction will fix that. Now at this point, like in all my other images, what I did is I duplicated this image, I removed the stars, and then using Star Exterminator, and then I stretched it just to see what I would get. Now the stack itself kind of frames the object really well. Yeah, if you have 400 millimeters or 300 millimeters, you could capture the entire thing. It's a circular nebulosity, circular nebula. So yeah, it's almost like a circle of nebulosity with some that incorporates the Elephant Trunk Nebula, and there's some dark nebulosity on the left, as you can see here. But again, I was really happy with my field of view. 21 hours is a decent amount of time. I sometimes go more or longer if I need to, but I thought this was kind of enough. So let's see where I was at. After I did this, I decided to do some stretching and some color mixing, and this is what I came up with. This was really good. It's much better than what I had before. As you can see, there's some issues with the corners. There's two ways to fix this. You either crop the image or you kind of fix it using content-aware fill in Photoshop. Not that hard. At this point, I did a first pass on color mixing. I don't think it's still a little bit golden. I like my images to be towards the reds. So maybe sulfur didn't come up as much, or maybe there's not a lot of sulfur nebulosity in there. That's why we have the data as it is. But everything else was great. I didn't really have to clean up a lot of stars. The algorithm did a good job, cleaned up the stars. I didn't really have to do any kind of post-processing to fix that. I was kind of happy. I thought, this was almost like 6 minutes into processing. So I thought, hey, this is almost an image that's finished. So what I decided to do is stretch it a bit more, do a bit more of what I did before with color mixing, and I ended up with this. And also I brought the stars back in. Now, I'm actually pretty happy with this image. The stars are pinpoints, which I really like. The nebulosity looks really good. I did a couple of more HDR multi-transforms to kind of pull the trunk out. It's pretty impressive to me. And for most images, this would be what I would stop, but it wasn't. So I actually don't like the stars as much because I really like this formation. So as you can see, I fixed the corners. There's no more weird vignetting. I played a bit more with the color mixing to get it more towards the reds that I wanted. And ultimately, I got what I think is a decent image. The walls of nebulosity, both in the top, the bottom, and the trunk itself, and the right look good. The dark nebulosity looks good. The noise levels are manageable. And overall, I think it came out as a great image. I like the oxygen being there, but not being overpowering. A lot of the people who oversaturate images end up with things like this. So let's just do a quick simulation. If I go in here and I bring a little bit more saturation than it should, what ends up happening, and this is an example, let's do a bit more, right? It just makes the image too overpowering, right? So it doesn't look natural. It looks really kind of weird. So this is why I stop. I find the balance. There's a very tight line between creating these oversaturated images that look like a mess and creating really good, aesthetically pleasing images that most people would enjoy and find inspiring. To me, that's what I aim for. I want to inspire people to get into this hobby or to learn more about space to understand that there's a vast ocean of information out there for us to look at, and this is something that the whole planet can do. It's not just if you're in one country or another. So that's why the images have to be aesthetically pleasing. They don't have to be too crazy, too saturated, or too weird in color schemes like doing HSO or some other weird combination. The Hubble standardized this. It kind of imprinted this into our minds, so I thought I'd follow with my own twist to it. And I hope you guys like it. I will leave you with this image, and if you have comments, suggestions, or questions, you know where to find me, either in the comment section or on social media. And thank you for your time, and thank you for watching my video. Goodbye.